Okay, I know a few of you have been waiting for this review of the, well, I was going to say new navigational software from ORCA, but it's not really new. I've had it for over a year, it's had about 5,000 miles with it. So I think I've used it enough now to give a few impressions on what it's actually like to use. So first of all, what is it? Well, it's similar to Navionics, to Savvy Navi, in that it's tablet based, but it's a bit more than that, because you have a thing called the core that if you want you can fit to your boat. You can use it just on the tablet on its own, just get the app, but if you fit the core, then it's getting the telemetry from the boat as well, because that's keyed into the NMEA system, so it knows everything about the boat's systems as well. So it's a little bit more sophisticated than your average piece of tablet navigational software. So let's start from when I fitted this over a year ago back in Porto Montenegro. I've heard really good reviews of this, and what it is a navigation system, just another navigation system, but a really good one because it's got a very accurate GPS. It's got a 9-axis unit in here to know how it's moving, a motion sensor that feeds all that information into the system as well. And of course, it's connected hardwired into the NMEA system. Well, we've got Sea-Talk NG because we're Raymarine on here, but so that's the unit there, and it just has a converter cable that comes through to put it on the NMEA network. But if you're already on the network, then simple, just plug it straight in, and then place this somewhere where it's going to, one, get a good view of the sky. I mean, through a glass fiber boat is absolutely fine. Inside here, it gets a really good GPS signal, but also you need to be not too far away from wherever you want to use your tablet or your phone to get the remote information that this is going to send out. So all the information is now coming to the iPad, and that's a really good thing. I mean, redundancy for a start. If there was something like a problem with the ship's GPS, the iPad's got its own GPS, so it would just use that. There's no problem at all. So it's got inbuilt redundancy within the one system, which is great. Also, it's got all that extra information. I know that a lot of people have another iPad that they just put their instruments on, because it's a great clear way and very definable. You can just customize how you want to see all the different instruments, and cheaper to have an iPad to put all your instruments on than buy the actual instrument pods and try and mount them somewhere. So really versatile ways that you can use this. Usually, of course, you'll just put some instruments alongside the chart that you're looking at. I normally have course over the ground, speed over the ground, ETA and depth on mine for normal passage making. And when I come into an anchorage, I like to have the rudder and the speed over the ground, which really makes things clear when you're manoeuvring. And yes, you can control the autopilot. I've got to admit, this is probably my favourite function. You can control it from anywhere on the boat. It's got all the normal controls and actually makes some much easier. Going to wind steering, for instance, has got a defined button. On the Raymarine, it's a combination of buttons which I never remember. So let's have a little look at it then. I'll put it up on screen so you can see what I'm seeing. And actually, I'm just going to go straight in. You can see this boat on AAS here, because while it's there, I want to show you something about the AAS here. If you have a look at the bottom there, it says the source is local receiver. So that's telling you that the boat's AAS has found it. That's the way that you know that. If you went for something further away, let's come out of this one here. This one could be either. Let's have a little look. No, see, source internet. So it's pulled that one off the internet. So there's redundancy even in that. And it's actually quite accurate, because we had a problem with the AAS on our boat at one stage, but they're all popping up on ORCA just as normal, very accurate, straight off internet. So that's sort of good redundancy inbuilt there as well. And of course, it can show you things, AAS targets that come up that will be way outside the AAS range of your own boat. So it's sort of giving you things in advance that are coming up if you were looking for someone. It's a good way of doing that. So yeah, I do like the AAS system on that. On this, I really like the way that it plots that closest point of contact. It's easy to read, and I think that's something that's definitely true of the whole system as a whole. Their charts are easy to read. If we look at this, it's quite a complicated form of bays around here at the southern end of Grenada, but it's sort of, to look at it at a glance, you can see things quite clearly. It's not too cluttered. I think a lot of charts now get very cluttered. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still use Navionics as my main form of charting when I'm coming into anchorages and things. but that's because of the bathymetry charts. The depth charts are second to none on Navionics. They've got all that system that will give you really good depth. So we'll do a little comparison of the two, maybe for some of the bays around here, just to show that. In fact, I did move anchorage just after shooting this, so decided to test both charts against what was actually there. I was moving from Prickly Bay to Mount Hartman Bay, usually known as Secret Harbour, and that's because it's hidden behind a lot of reefs. ORCA shows the way in for me would be a bit dodgy with my 2-metre draft. Navionics agrees on its standard chart, but you can switch Navionics to the sonar chart, which has depth information constantly added from users. And this showed good depth on the way in, so I went for it. Here's my track. You can see I boxed the anchorage out a little bit. There were other boats anchored, but the shallows were very real, and I ended up in the western end with more room to anchor as I was doing this single-handed. So let's have a closer look at that reef at the entrance. On either chart's standard setting, I would not have attempted it, but the Navionics sonar chart was showing a minimum of 12 metres in the middle of the narrow channel, so I aimed for the centre, got to the 12-metre contour, and followed it using the depth sounder. As you can see, it seems the reef has retreated further back, but there is indeed good depth through the channel. So having the extra information is definitely good, but don't believe everything you see. So yes, Navionics is still ahead for depth for me. I think that's very important, but I do use this as my main form for navigation because of the clarity of how it shows the buoys and having a first glance at things, and also because of the way that it maps things. It does routes very well. So this one of the first routes that I did when we were way back crossing the Adriatic, and you can see that you can go through it as well and get weather along the way. So it's giving you other information as well, giving you quite an accurate time of arrival and quite accurate courses as well, because it is learning all the systems of the boat. It's learning the polars of the boat. I'm not going to go into polars here. If you're a racer, you'll know all about it. As a cruiser, it's some geekiness you could probably do without, but it's good that the ORCA knows it because it makes it more accurate. So let's have a little look at the screen again and have a look at some of the things that are on there. You'll see this is from my last trip when we sailed back down through the Grenadines. This line, that's our track coming down. They call them breadcrumbs, so it shows them. The idea is that if they're closer together, then you're going slow. If they're further apart, you're moving a bit faster. I think they're going to change this system now to just be a line, which is better. But better than that, what they will do, because you'll see there's gaps in this when we've been using it, and those gaps are there because if you haven't actually got the tablet switched on at that time, if it's not up in the foreground, then it doesn't record the signals as it is at the moment. But that is imminently going to change, I'm told, which would be much better, because I don't leave the iPad on all the time. Sometimes it's off, especially if I'm using Navionics or something else on one of the other iPads as the main form of navigation for that particular trip. This might be off and just as a backup, but I want it to have the route there. It's important for things like a man overboard, for instance, as well, for knowing that that you can go back across that track if you want to retrace your steps. I mean, of course, it does have those sorts of functions as well. If I push this out for man overboard, it's got a marker that will be dropped if you hit that straight away, and you can head back to that. And this is where, in this particular drop down menu, you can turn your AIS on and off, either have the satellite imagery on or off as well. So that's quite good coming into anchorages sometimes, to have a little look at the satellite imagery for a certain thing. Community spots, if you want it less cluttered, you could turn those off as well, off the chart as well. And radar, it's got radar on there as well. If you've got your radar keyed into this, you can do it. I've got the quantum radar, which you can make fit mine. I've got the ORCA 1. The ORCA 2 has got an input for radar, so most radars will actually work with the newer core as well. So that's really good there. They're adding things all the time. One of the sort of impressive things I think about ORCA is that they are developing all the time. There's updates all the time, and and it's always doing these updates and coming up with new things. So that's quite a good thing. I have the automatic rerouting turned off, but you might want that on. There's a good night mode on this. I've shown pictures before actually on the episodes using it at night. So I like the dark thing that you have for night view. Even on iPad, it's looking really good. And look, you can see this is the guy. The AAS is a nice function, I think, on this. It seems to work really well. Usual thing, you can press on it, get all the details up. So you can see this big cargo ship is right in front of me, and it shows closest point of contact there. But it's not crossing, but it's going to come quite close. I will obviously bear away a little bit to starboard so we can get a little bit further away from him than that. But it's a neat system, I think. I quite like that sort of way that it can have the lines, the aim lines, and see where they're going to cross and what the closest point's going to be. And the line from our boat, you set that in the settings for how long you want that to be, and I've got mine set to an hour, so it's quite nice. You can look at it at a glance and see, well, that's where you're going to be at this speed in an hour. So yeah, it's good. Quite impressed so far. And I should say as well, if you're using the actual ORCA tablet, which is an Android tablet, that's super bright, so much better in sunlight. If we have a comparison of looking at an iPad and this, you can see it is much brighter. It is a much better thing to use for that. So it's definitely worth considering the actual ORCA tablet if you want something a bit more rugged and waterproof, and with that good vision in full sunlight. I just don't like the Android app. It's an Android-based thing, this, so I prefer using it on the iPad. I must admit, and for me, it's not really a big disadvantage because we're in the doghouse here, so it doesn't get the sun on it, so it doesn't die from having the sun on it, and it doesn't get too much reflection, and it doesn't get splashed on this boat. So it's not too bad. So that's why I use the iPad. So I want to point out a few things that I found out when I had the Zoom call with the technicians there, because I didn't work out exactly what it was, so there might be a few other people in that same predicament. So if we look at this part of the chart here, the AIS, I mean, the AIS is really very good. I keep going on about how good the AIS is on this, and one of the really good things is it has these little squares. When it knows something's stopped, it just puts it as a little square. It works out that it stops, but it also knows if something maybe isn't stopped but doesn't seem to have moved. So this one above it that's grey here, if we look at that, it's just because it's expecting that to move. It knows it's moving, but it hasn't had something back from it for a while. So let's have a look. It's a local receiver, so I'm seeing it, but it's a long way away. So maybe it's something that's just dropped off my local receiver. It might. Oh, that's it. It's just popped up there. It's just gone blue. Go around the other way. Is that the same one? I'm not sure. Local receiver source. Yeah, I think it is. It's probably a fishing boat that's just going around there. No, maybe not. They don't normally have AS. I don't know. Let's have a look. We'll find out what it is. It's a tug. Oh, okay. So yeah, it's sort of, it could be just working around there. So yeah, if it's blue, you know that it's had a recent hit from it, either from a local or from the internet. If it hasn't done it, I don't know exactly what the time is, but 30 seconds, a minute, whatever, then it might go grey because it says, well, it might not be there. It might be a ghost ship. You might sort of think, oh, well, it says it's on AES and it's not actually there, which tends to happen a lot in the early days especially. So let's look at putting in a route, shall we? Where should we go? Mystique. I like Mystique. Okay, I'm going to put a little point in there, so just hold your finger on it. It'll put the pin down, tell you that 63 nautical miles as a crow flies to get there. If I say navigate to, it'll come up. I want to navigate from where I am at the moment, so current location, it'll sit there, go finding route, and see how long it takes. I've got sail type, so route type there on as sail, because I do want to obviously sail on there, departing now, so you could go on there and say another time if you wanted to go, because it's working out, what the, if there's tides, currents going around, what the weather is as well around it, so it's working out what your best route is. So this is telling me where it should be. And yeah, where the wind direction is, surprise, surprise, it's from the east, it always is here. 17 knots, 20 knots as you get closer, so it'll give you the whole way up. And if I press the button, it will do it. And it'll configure it for steering as you're on the boat. If you press the little compass here, it'll come around to put north up, so I usually have it north up when we're going there. If you are hand steering, sometimes it's good to have it that way around, so it's nice to be able to do that. But yeah, that's showing me the route, nice and clear. It's saying go to the windward side of the islands, which is a good idea. And it could give you details if we press on details, and you can just go across different parts of the route. This has got, better and better, I think. They're getting sort of more concise and easy to read. So at the top right hand corner there, it's saying the wind for that section between 9 o'clock and 1:45 in the morning, it's between 17 and 18 knots, waves 1.7 meters, 1.8, and then there's a current of 0.8 to 1.7, which there always is sort of going through there. So yeah, it knows all the different points about the route on the way through, and telling you the best way to do it. Sometimes it puts odd little bits in like that, just because it knows it wants you a little bit further away from those headlands, and that's the best way to do it. I mean, obviously, when you're actually sailing it, maybe it'll get accurate enough to know that you're always on exactly that route, but sometimes I can pinch up a little bit more than it thinks up on here, and sometimes I can't point as high as it says. But you can go in and tweak those polars manually as well if you know that you're not going to head that, or if you don't want to push the boat that hard, you can go in. So you can sort of work it out to how you sail if you want to, really do that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's done. If I press, so it actually will start the route. It says route started at the top there, and takes the little blue arrow across. So now, yeah, it will actually just run through the route and give you a continuous ETA. If I want to clear it, I press the blue arrow and just say clear route, and it's gone away. One of the other things I found out on the Zoom call with the TEP guys, which was quite good, was I was worried about the fact that sometimes our speed log on the boat, the through the water speed log, doesn't work. Not just because it gets jammed up really quickly here, so everyone has that problem, but ours is just, it seems to be intermittent anyway. Comes and goes even when it's clean. Sometimes it just goes, and I thought, well, that might muck the whole system up, because if it thinks it's got no speed through the water on the log, then how's it going to work out the polars properly? Because it's got the GPS speed obviously, and it might mess up the whole system. Well, it's smart enough that it doesn't do that. A lot of the other systems aren't smart enough, and it does mess up the system. But with this, if it's got a reading of 0 from the log through the water, then it just ignores it. So it's not going to get the fine tuning that you want, because it doesn't know that. It can't sort of work out what the tides are doing. But yeah, it's not the end of the world if that happens, so don't worry too much about it. One of the other things I asked about was guard zones on radar IAS, to be able to set them, because it'd be lovely to be able to set them, and at the moment you can't, and that is something that's coming apparently, so we're looking forward to that. One of the other additions since I first got this is the information from Navily. If you've had this on other platforms, then you'll know how useful it is for those of us cruising to new places. Information about community spots and reviews, which are always worth reading. You can search on here too, or just ask for a list of the nearest anchorages. This is really nicely laid out with the star ratings from the reviews. And it does the same for marinas. Should talk about charts as well, because they haven't got everything charted as yet. They're adding things quite quickly though, but you can go online. I'll put the link to the page, and you can show as a sort of a way of seeing what is charted and what isn't. Sometimes it's not obvious from the app itself, in the way that it might be with Navionics, for instance, of knowing what bits you can get charts from. In fact, when we were crossing the Atlantic, I thought there was a problem with the charts coming from the Gambia across to the Cape Verdes and then across to here, because I was trying to put the whole thing in as a route, as a transatlantic route, and it was saying it couldn't find the start point. Well, I knew it had the charts. I was looking at them, looked like it had all the detail from it, but the thing with that is it won't do as a longer trip as that. At the moment, it doesn't do long ocean voyages. It won't plot them. Something that's going to come in the future, but at the moment, they're prioritizing the people that are using it most, which are people doing shorter trips and coastal sailing. So those things will come eventually, so they will be in there. So let's have a look at the settings up here in the top left hand corner. So first of all, at the top there, it's got Fair Isle connected, just to tell you that you are connected to the core. It's got an anchor watch. I don't tend to use it. I find it's a bit clunky, but yeah, it's fairly, I think if you got used to it, you can do what you want. You can offset the anchor to be in the right place, do all that sort of stuff, set an alarm, it's usual basic sort of stuff. the Wi-Fi link just telling you, what Wi-Fi you're connected to. So all of these things are there for diagnosis. If you've got a problem, that you can go through and you can see what is and isn't happening. Obviously, you can update from there. The calibrate compass, or the calibrations that we were talking about earlier, are on there. So you can click on that and start calibration. It'll guide you through of what you need to do to start to calibrate things. So that's all really good. Connected devices. So whatever it's seeing, so that's all the stuff from the core as well is all on here. So that's quite useful to go through sometimes to see. In fact, I'm going to use this at some point. I'm going to try and test out a flopper stopper, and I noticed on here vessel motion, because it's got all those really high accuracy things in there to know pitch and roll and that sort of stuff. I can look on there and see what difference it makes when I put the flopper stopper down as I test it. So there's all sorts of different bits and pieces on there that you can look through to see how everything's working. So that's quite useful. Diagnosis as well, very useful, because it's got this button at the bottom, send report. So if there is something that you don't understand what's happening, and it can get complicated with an NMEA system where something might not be working quite as you want it to, you can go into this and you can look at it and press send report, and it will send it from the app straight through to ORCA. Their guys, their engineers will look at it there and tell you, what's happening, that there might be something, a problem maybe with one of your bits of kit that they can see from the data that's coming back, because it will generate a report. So, I think it's all pretty good, pretty useful. Your routing settings. So go through this and have a look to set it for things like engine cruising speed. It'll give it an idea of how you would normally sail or motor, and to work out ETAs and that sort of stuff at the beginning, depth limits, so it can work out where it wants to route you. Even things like the polars, it'll look at the polars, and if you're really into that, because it's not just for racing, you might want to work out what your polars are, and it give you a more accurate idea of where you should sail on a route and how long it would take you as well. So that's all pretty good. Traffic, you want to hide your own AIS on there, and so that it doesn't interfere with the system itself. Type, obviously sailboat, we can put all your details into their dimensions. So that's all fairly standard, as you would expect it. Well, there's one really important thing that I've missed actually that I found really useful. If we press the settings thing in the top left hand side, and we go to account settings, on the chart one there, it's got all sorts of different things, but one of them is the AIS target length and the aim line length. So what I normally have is the aim line is very, very long on Navionics, because it's showing you where if you're heading for a shoreline somewhere, it's showing you exactly where you're heading at the end of that line. So I quite like that. But on this, because I normally have both running together, I've got the aim line set for an hour, because that's really useful as well. It just shows you where you're going to be in an hour. So for longer trips, you look at it and you can sort of visualize where you're going to be, the scale of things. Certainly if there's other ships there as well. So certainly when the AIS comes into it. So work out what works for you. So I've got the aim line length for an hour, and then I've got the AIS target length for 20 minutes, because it shows me then, by looking at how long the line is from that boat, how fast they're going and where they're going to be in 20 minutes time, and normally where that's going to be in relationship to me. Obviously we're not moving at the moment, but if I go on to just the map here, you can see this boat up here is moving very fast, because his line is hugely long. In 20 minutes he's going to be right down here. He must be really flying. Let's have a little look. Let's go on him and see. Yeah, he's doing 20 knots. Osprey, it's the Osprey shuttle, so it's a fast shuttle. But then you can see, like this one here, not going so long, so far 6.3 knots there. So that's where he's going to be in 20 minutes time. So it sort of gives you that juxtaposition with yourself, how long your line is. You're going to be there in an hour. This one from the AIS is going to be there in 20 minutes, and I find that really useful as something to have. So find something that works and stick to it, so you don't mess yourself up with what you've got. But I think it's useful to have that, more useful than just a very, very long line to sort of find out where you're actually heading to. But again, it's nice to have that as well, and I have that on the Navionics, so you get the best of both worlds.
Lastly then, let's have a look at a relatively new feature, Logbook. I must admit I only really started playing with this when I was shooting the video, but it's great. It's actually a really good feature. It will download all your trips from the core, and as the core is always on when the boat's nav gear is on, everything has been recorded. So pick a day, and as well as getting your route, you'll get everything else as well, all the telemetry, speed, wind strength, current. And all these sections can be opened up to give a graphical representation of the data. So here we can see we have a maximum speed of 9 knots and an average of 6. This was an overnight passage, so it's divided up. So if we move on to the next day, we can see the wind has strengthened a bit with a maximum of 32 knots true. But you can see in the morning we were being forced west. I knew this must be quite a fierce current, and sure enough, we logged a maximum of 6 knots. I think I'm going to enjoy playing with the logbook. So that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this run through of ORCA's features. Do please remember to subscribe. There's lots of these sorts of videos on our channel, as well as the episodes which you can catch up with too.